Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Calvin Leckelt. I am the program lead for energy efficiency programs at the Municipal Climate Change Action Center. And I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar, Discover the Value of a Municipal Energy Manager with Adeib Bashar. As attendees are still in the process of joining the webinar, I'm just going to go over some quick housekeeping. We're using Microsoft Teams Live, so this means that your microphone and camera are off. If you have any questions for our team or for our guest speaker, you can type them into the Q&A box and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. My colleague Tori is behind the scenes monitoring these questions as they come in, and he'll publish those as they are received. So this webinar is also going to be recorded and available to all participants on the MCCAC website under our Learning Center in just a few days after the webinar wraps up. So before really jumping in, we'd like to respectfully acknowledge that this presentation is being delivered in Treaty 6 territory. We acknowledge all the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries and whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant communities. We also acknowledge that we have attendees from across Alberta and encourage all of you to take a second to acknowledge the land and the Indigenous peoples of the region in which you are joining us today. For those of you who are not familiar with the Action Center, we were established in 2009 as a collaborative between the Alberta Urban Municipalities Association, the Rural Municipalities of Alberta, and the Government of Alberta. So the Action Center provides funding, technical assistance, education to Alberta's municipalities, nonprofits, and schools in addressing climate change. As for a few stats on the impact that the Action Center has had, we've worked with over 330 unique participants on nearly 600 projects. We've helped create 435 jobs. We've supported the installation of 14 megawatts of solar and funded projects that reduce over 380,000 tons of CO2 equivalent during their useful lifetimes. So I'll just briefly go through our agenda for the webinar. I'll be talking a little bit about why anyone, especially a municipality, should be looking to hire a municipal energy manager. We'll look at some of the benefits energy management can bring you, as well as the deliverables through the actual MEM program. We'll touch on the funding and some of the participation to date, and then we'll get to the bulk of the webinar, which will be our guest presentation with Adeib. And then we'll wrap up with some Q&A. So why hire a municipal energy manager? Well, over the years, we consistently heard from municipalities that they would love to participate in our programs, but they really just struggle with that lack of internal capacity and expertise to apply for funding, know what projects to apply for, what the benefit of those projects are, how to implement those projects, and ultimately how to go about their GHG reduction journey. So the Municipal Energy Manager program aims to support all of these municipalities by funding the salary of an internal municipal energy manager and building that internal capacity to take on those projects that bring value and energy savings to the municipality. So Adeib will really be going through this in more detail as to his experience, but an energy manager will develop an energy management plan. They'll lead energy saving projects. They'll receive training and support to keep making progress and have up to 80% of their salary paid for by the Action Center. So there's a variety of benefits that come from managing energy use. Strong energy management practices will lead to energy cost savings, improved system operations, improved occupant comfort, just higher quality indoor spaces, reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and just a stronger energy conservation culture within the organization. And by doing all of these different activities, it really forms a baseline to continuously improve upon in future years. So municipal energy managers hired by the municipality will identify large energy consuming facilities. They'll complete energy benchmarking on the municipal building portfolio. They'll develop a customized energy management plan, including specific GHG reduction targets. They lead energy efficiency and renewable energy projects, and they assess and grow the energy management practices and policies within the municipalities, among other tasks. And all municipal energy managers also have direct support, including coaching, training, tools, templates, and other resources from our technical advisors, ClearResult. And this additional support is completely free of charge to the municipality and is covered by the program. In terms of funding, the MEM program will fund energy manager positions for up to 2 years at a rate of 80% of the MEM's base salary to a maximum of $80,000 per year. So we won't exceed funding any municipality beyond $160,000 for 2 years. The second year is optional, and it's contingent on meeting minimum year 1 requirements. So there is a review period where we sit down near the end of the first year and look at all the different successes and approve funding for that coming second year. So there is a deadline to apply if you're looking to get involved in the program. That deadline is April 30th of 2021 to receive 2 years of funding for your energy manager. After that date, we can still continue to fund new positions, but we are limited as to what the term can be for those new positions. So you would only be eligible for one 12-month term after that date. Since April 2019, this is some of our participation stats. So we have 16 municipalities that are participating in the program, including a partnership, 2 partnerships actually, but one including a municipal district and a village that you can see there with Bonnyville and Glendon. We have 13 energy managers that have been approved, 10 of which are working in their new roles, and the remainder are still in that recruitment process. So overall, there are more than 250 municipal buildings in scope, and the program is still open and accepting applications. So with that, I'll pass it over to our guest presenter, Adeib Bashar, and he'll talk to all of us about his journey through the program and all the great work that he's leading at the City of Brooks. So I'll just get that queued up for you right here, Adeib. All right, take it away.
Thanks, Calvin. First off, I wanted to thank the MCCAC for having me on. It's truly an honor. And I'm also thankful for running this program. I think it's an awesome thing to have for municipalities right now. As we know with COVID, some municipalities might be struggling, and to have energy efficiency in place right now is a hidden gem that people have not quite realized yet. And that's something that I wanted to talk about. This is my experience as being an MEM at the City of Brooks. Just as an overview for my presentation, I'm going to talk briefly about myself, the MEM program basics, some value that I thought I could bring to a municipality, specific demonstrations of value, some potential risks that come with the program, and ways to manage that risk, some co-benefits, closing remarks, and a question period at the end. So about me, just some personal stuff. I'm obsessed with the stock market. Most of my friends know me as the stock guy, and I'm just all about getting the most out of risk. So I like to invest in clean energy, EVs, companies that leverage machine learning, automation, all these new things that people are exploring right now. And most of my time spent is reading about personal growth, philosophy, investment stuff, just knowing things going on in the world. I enjoy being outdoors, running, hiking, playing casual sports. And I'm also pretty frugal, but I probably spend way too much on takeout, as most millennials probably do. And a few favorites of mine. My favorite movie is The Matrix. Food is probably pho or creamy lobster Alfredo. And my quote is, every adversity, every failure, every heartbreak carries with it a seed of an equal or greater benefit. So career-wise, I started my career in 2014, where I got a diploma in alternative energy technology at NATE. We study renewables, life cycle assessment, waste management, carbon capture, and some energy efficiency. During that time, I did a capstone project with Great Canadian Solar, where I designed a solar PV powered carport for EV charging on campus. And then shortly after that, I worked in the Energy Efficiency Alberta program, that first program for no charge residential energy savings program. People know that as like the free light bulb program. And then shortly after that, I moved on to the DEET and ACIP programs, where I worked with an engineering firm based out of Sherwood Park, where I learned the bulk of my energy management experience. I'm also pursuing my CEMs and my PMP designations, and it's just around the corner there. And perhaps later down the line, if and when I start working on lead projects, I'd like to get some lead certifications. So I just wanted to touch briefly on this here. It's just nothing super serious. It's just artwork that Tatsuo Horiyoshi did in Excel. So there's supposed to be some witty joke that I, couldn't come up with between being a hippie and an Excel nerd. And as you can see, that his art is great, but where your MEM might be able to do might not be anything like that. It's just going to be a bunch of numbers. So for the MEM program basics, just as a refresher, it's just a grant program to hire an MEM to facilitate energy savings across the municipal building portfolio. And we primarily work with senior management and building operators. My general goal is to achieve energy savings and reduce environmental impact while being cost efficient and aware of people's comfort levels. So we do this by gathering a ton of information, diagnosing and proposing solutions to issues, and implementing those projects. More specifically, we do that by utility data analytics, site visits, careful balancing of the needs of the public, stakeholders, employees, etc., and prioritization by financial metrics and budgetary considerations. So once we identify some projects, we want to make sure that those aren't wasting money. So just the gist of it, a really simple way to explain what I do is I'm basically a doctor for the community and its buildings, and I diagnose, financial, energy, environmental issues, and I prescribe solutions. So what I think I bring in terms of value to the City of Brooks is a fresh perspective. I help de-risk investments associated with energy and building infrastructure. I think I'm a subject matter expert in a field that's a bit more technical than expected. I'm also a dedicated staff member to facilitate cost and greenhouse gas emission savings. And issues that are often procrastinated on get taken care of if you have, that dedicated staff member. Also, energy efficiency as a whole is apolitical. So you might have people that might have some views about solar, different kinds of energy or environmental projects, but energy efficiency is just totally, what's the word for it? Agnostic to it. And it brings with it several benefits that Calvin also mentioned before. So moving on to some examples, one of the things that we do is we take a deep look at the builds. So here on the left column, we have our entire building portfolio. Beside that, we have the NRCan building categories. So looking at the next two columns, we have an energy usage intensity and benchmark EUI. And all I'm really doing here is looking at Natural Resource Canada's, database of buildings. And I'm comparing how our buildings perform to the median in Alberta. And then I have the total emissions for each building on the next column, and then I have set some targets for them and some approximate annual cost savings if we do reach those targets. And this amounts to a total of 4.7% from the baseline. Now I know that the MEM program mentions that 5% is kind of like a rule of thumb, and talking to them, there is some flexibility in that. It really depends on how your buildings are performing. Now there are some limitations to that. It really depends on the context. As you can see, we have at the building at the bottom there, arts, culture, and heritage building. We're only getting $79 per year in savings. That might not seem like much, and that might seem like, yeah, the building's super energy efficient, but in reality, it's just a highly underused building. So context is super important. So the way I went about setting these targets, now I think every MEM is going to come up with their own way to do it. Some MEMs have like a longer term forecast or target, maybe like 10% by 2030, 50% by X year. So I just wanted to do it quantitatively based on how our buildings compare to the benchmarks, and all this equation is really saying is trying to capture that 10% of the gap between the average building or the median building and what our building is at. So going into some specifics here, this is one of our major rec centers, the GBS Canada Center. It's a multiplex with multiple ice sheets, pool, fitness center, sports areas, and even a library. And we have a large area that is heated and powered by a cogen unit, which experienced some downtime. So as you can see on the graph on the left there in the photo, in 2018 in July, we experienced a huge spike in electricity consumption. And on the right there, you can see that's paired with a huge dip in natural gas consumption. Now, looking at that, what that tells me is that there's a possibility that it's probably caused by the cogen unit, because the cogen unit consumes natural gas to generate electricity and heat the area as well. And when that natural gas dipped, we ended up purchasing electricity in place while the cogen unit was down. And this cost us about $4,100 for that particular month. Of course, there might be other factors going on. That's really hard to quantify, but that was a net loss in $4,100 possibly. So this is really important because energy is cost or priced differently. We see that for this building, 86% of the energy consumption there is attributed to natural gas, and only 14% is retail electricity. Despite that, we can see that overall costs come from the electricity, the transmission, distribution, as well as retail, and only 40%, roughly 40% is natural gas. So electricity is much more expensive than natural gas, and one of the major reasons is because we're shipping in electricity from the plants. So this basically led to a dialogue regarding potential reimbursements and a better relationship with ATCO, better tracking, and ultimately a better service to us as a client. So looking at our bills, 3 of our largest consumers at the city were on utility rate structures where electrical demand is super important. Our demand was built based off of 4 factors, and it uses the greatest of those 4 factors. And one of the factors is the contract minimum. Now, it was found that the contract minimum far exceeded the actual electrical demand on site. So to put that into simpler terms, imagine being billed for a constant minimum amount of 10 gigs of phone data, even though you could only ever use 5. So after number crunching and working with our managers, the minimum was reduced, and now it's a bit more fairly billed, resulting in significant cost savings. So even to reduce that minimum, there is some fee structure associated with that, and some of them would even cost upwards of $90,000. So working with finance, we were able to find the most cost optimal approach such that in the long term, we don't lose that much money. And after all of that, once we reach those new contract minimum, we should be expecting at at minimum $66,000 a year in savings just from the contract negotiations. So besides the billing analysis, we also look at innovation. So innovation in building science is rarely ever looked at under normal circumstances. And it's most likely since we kind of just focus on maintenance, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So an MEM's job is to identify nodes of energy waste and develop solutions, and building science is a constantly evolving industry. So some unique solutions we're considering are removable window inserts to help reduce heat leakage, zero mixing boiler technology to make our boiler systems more efficient, ice water treatment, and exterior insulation for pour envelopes. So there are also some peripheral objectives such as EV additions to the municipal fleet, behavioral solutions, community generation, unique policy, and municipal program development. So some specific findings for our building here is this City Hall. We found that custom window inserts might be a potential solution over what could be an invasive, window renovation. So you can see on the image on the left there is just an average window, one of our 27 windows that we had there during the winter. And on the right is a thermal image that I took. And I did that with a FLIR. It's just a special device that shows you infrared imagery. And we can see that even though the indoor temperature was around 21 to 23 degrees, we had about 6 degrees or in and around that window. Next up is our public works building, where I found that our exterior walls had a lot of penetrations, a lot of leakiness of holes, lack of insulation. So we're looking into putting in a exterior insulation system, and that's with the help of ClearResult. So this table here is just the table of findings or the results that I got from my energy audit. And building up, I would say senior management finds this particular aspect of the MEM program pretty valuable, and it essentially de-risks a number of energy efficiency investments that they're considering. Because a lot of people know, there are certain upgrades that we can do, but how can we quantify, how can we know for sure, or at least with a bit more confidence that a particular upgrade is going to be worth doing? So this is what the MEM program aims to, is one of the aspects that is very beneficial. So we can see here that the ones that I highlighted are ones that have, ideal financials, things that I deem that I would recommend to senior management. And an important figure on the right there is a net present value, and that just basically tells you that once you do implement a particular project, factoring maintenance and equipment lifetimes and things like that, what is the total amount of money you will have left in your pocket once this piece of new equipment expires or supposedly expires? Yeah. So we can see that the City Hall target was only about $549 per year. If we were to do a minimum of 2% energy savings. So I just wanted to, talk a bit about that some more. So I do have some target reductions, and that comes from the 10% of the difference. But in some cases, your benchmark might end up being more than what your building actually consumes. So you might appear to be more energy efficient than the median in Alberta. So I set a 2% minimum. And with that 2% minimum, we're getting about $550 a year. And just going back to that slide, we could see that this number can easily be achieved with just a few of these upgrades or just one even. So some common projects across all of our buildings, some no or low cost measures, temperature automation or just general controls automation, hot water and tank insulation to reduce heat loss, low flow shower heads and aerators to reduce excess water consumption and heating energy associated with heating that water. PC sleep schedules, because we have a lot of PCs, and air sealing, so things like window caulking, door seals and sweeps, flashing dampers, and some capital intensive projects right now. A couple that we're specifically looking at are LED lighting and potentially insulation. So looking at some risks and limitations and things to consider for the MEM program. Realistically speaking, smaller, newer, underused, or lack of buildings might not have that much room for improvement. Possible lack of compatibility with the program with existing municipal structure operations. So the MEM program does have some guidelines set in place, fortunately, and they're pretty flexible about it. But sometimes that structure may not necessarily mesh that well, and it really depends on how your municipality runs things. Another concern might be staff mindset, differences in views, differences in professional opinions. So, you know, if it ain't broke, why fix it? One concern is facility staff might already have set up something that's working. And, you know, if you go ahead and you're essentially as an MEM bringing in all this radical change and improvement. And, you know, if they have something that's working, that might, you know, make them feel a bit anxious about implementing new things, as they might be the first to catch flack for it. Energy efficiency doesn't have an impactful appearance. It's not super hot like solar. So compared to, you know, like a new bridge or a solar array or a new basketball court. So maybe you would want to focus your funding there versus energy efficiency. Accuracy of energy saving projections are subject to things that went on during the site visit, assumptions made, things that I heard from the operators, and just like general misinformation. Another consideration, an obvious one, is financial or budgetary limitations. And grants assist with the funding, but it can be a major make or break factor if, you know, deadlines aren't met for grants, or eligibility is another factor. So yeah. So some ways to mitigate some of that risk is, you know, as I mentioned before, MCTAC is pretty flexible, and they do offer support to the MEM if needed, particularly cross collaboration. So we see that just recently we had an event with other municipalities, and we share experiences, lessons, solutions, things to watch out for. One MEM in particular reached out to myself and some other MEMs about the EV charging grant, and, you know, 20 was the minimum, and, you know, it wasn't. I don't think that they needed the full 20, so we're kind of looking to split that across other municipalities. Also, one that I didn't mention here is that I've been talking to the MEM at Cochrane, and we're looking into going paperless at our municipality. There's also technical or engineering support to the MEM from Clear Results. And as I specifically mentioned earlier, we're looking at exterior insulation. And I've already done my own estimations, but I wanted to just get some additional verification from a large firm like Clear Result. Also, as it's probably known, it's a small commitment for the municipality, since the MCCAC funds 80% of the salary, so that mitigates some of the risk. Any savings achieved by the MEM will likely be an ongoing event, so perhaps like annual savings of say $5,000 a year across all your buildings will eventually pay itself off for the MEM, and some more. So some co-benefits that come with the program. So every MEM is going to be different, or as different as the municipality itself. And the MCCAC encourages work beyond just energy efficiency of the building portfolio. So in specific, what I'm doing here at Brooks is I have several multiple peripheral projects going on. Now I forgot to scratch this one off the list here, unfortunately, but we were looking at Brooks Housing Society. So we have an affordable housing group here, and they were looking at retrofitting some of their heating systems using the FCM system, Sustainable Affordable Housing Grant. That's a mouthful. And as it currently stands with that grant program, there is a 50% grant to cover the study, and I think that at that time that wasn't a risk that they wanted to take, and that has been tabled for now, unfortunately. So I've been helping them with that. Community generation is another thing that we're looking at. Electric vehicle additions to the city fleet. And then I'm also working with our EcoBrooks Environmental Advisory Committee, where we're looking at neighborhood beautification, addressing implementation of community recycling, COVID-19 mask littering, encouraging environmental conscientiousness within the community, and additions to the water rebate program that we have here. So some specifics for the water rebate program. The City of Brooks has a special interest in water consumption, which I'm not 100% clear on, but it's really important that we save water here. And we have an existing rebate program which gives residents about a $50 rebate for low flush toilets, efficient washing machines, and dishwashers. So I wanted to improve on that a bit with a few items, and you can see that in the table there in the red box. Is I put together a business case for those 4 different measures, and I just wanted to give a comparison of the previous measures to show them, what kind of financial and water impact they would have with their existing ones, and to compare with the new ones and whether they should be added or not, and what kind of rebate we're looking at. So there are some co-benefits associated with the program. So it creates projects. The projects that we do, the MEMs do, will, could possibly create some employment opportunities for local businesses to engage in. I think the public is in favor of efficient usage of tax money. It just makes sense. Environmental benefits, obviously. Economic recovery from COVID-19. It also garners an efficiency mindset, which can expand out into other departments and promote further innovation. Frees up funds for municipalities on a tight budget. Electricity savings from energy efficiency reduces how much solar PV is needed to go net zero. So if you're looking at implementing solar, you'd want to cut back on your electricity first. And of course, less fuels burned on site leads to better air quality in and around the building. So some closing remarks. It's understandable that now's the time to conserve and play it safe. Municipalities don't want to be forking over too much money. Everyone's kind of playing it safe right now. But on the contrary, I would argue that the savings resulting from participating in the program should help with the economic negative effects of COVID. One thing to consider is look at your building. Do you think there's room for savings? Do you think you're even able to evaluate your building portfolio? It's unlikely that the majority of your buildings were built based on cutting-edge building science best practices. So having that MEM will essentially help you with that, the subject matter side of it. Your risk also is just paying up to 2 years for 20% of your MEM salary, and low-cost energy savings measures. And your reward can potentially be tens of thousands of dollars in annual savings and a better environmentally friendly and financially sustainable community. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's my experience at the City of Brooks. Thanks for listening. I hope you found it entertaining and informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or contact me on LinkedIn. And thanks again to the MCCAC for having me. It was truly an honor.
Great, thanks so much, Adeib. It's a really great presentation, and there's a lot of really great work happening at the City of Brooks. So I think they're really lucky to have you spearheading a lot of that work. So yeah, we really appreciate you sharing those insights. And yeah, I particularly like that one of those last points you made about kind of using the MEM program as a COVID mitigation strategy to help limit some of those financial impacts. No, it's a great idea. So with that, we can open it up to some questions. So thanks to everyone who has submitted those. Tori, do you want to chime in and share some of those questions with either if they're for Adeib or for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's only a couple questions that came in. The first question was from Larry. He was asking about, and this question's for Adeib, he was asking about at the JBS Center, what was the size of the cogen unit?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I wouldn't be able to tell you. That was something that was implemented before I joined, but I can look into that for you for sure.
Okay. The next question comes from an anonymous participant. They ask, does the city use any of the energy generated from the solar farm that's located just east of the city?
I actually don't think so. I think we are also currently looking at decentralizing our energy here, and if that was already a thing, I'm sure I would have known about it. So I think it's not already being used by the city.
Okay. Well, looks like there's another question that just came in. This one's from Joad, and Joad writes, Adeib, can you talk a bit about the community generation projects you are seeing in your community and participating in?
For sure, yeah. So a few months back, just before COVID, actually, we were discussing having a large solar array possibly within the city, and that was in a partnership with Medicine Hat College and maybe a couple other stakeholders, and that was kind of put to a halt right now. But talking to our CAO, there's definitely an interest in decentralized energy right now, possibly even a large cogen unit of some sort but we just have to, you know, iron out some of the details, things like how are we going to use that heat. Yeah, I think there is a big concern over transmission distribution here in the city of Brooks. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Got another question from Larry. Larry writes, do you have examples of communities that have partnered together or to take advantage of the MEM program? So I guess that's maybe something Calvin and I could answer. So we do have examples of communities who have partnered. For example, the town, the municipal district of Bonnyville has partnered with the village of Glendon. So they have a municipal energy manager who's actually on the webinar today, Joad. So he manages not only Bonnyville's, but also the village of Glendon's municipal portfolio. And we've also got another municipality who will be joining very soon. And that's a combination of a town, county, and a village. So yeah, you can get some good variety in terms of the partnerships, and we certainly encourage that. It's a great way to cost share and share resources with one another. So yeah. Okay, another question here. Is your public works department large? I think that's for Adeib.
Yeah, so I don't know what you mean by large, but we do have about 40, I can't say off the top of my head, but probably around 40 people working there. We have a couple building-wise, we have a couple buildings there, like basically big warehouses or bays. And you know, we are a small municipality, probably between 15 to 20,000. So take what you will from that. I hope that helps.
Great. Okay, we got another question from an anonymous user. Would you mind sharing if you have a budget to work with, or is it on a project basis?
So we do have a operating budget for each building. So I would basically be consulting with our senior management. For instance, with our city hall, we have someone who has a rough idea, or she knows the budget of this building. And you know, when I come to her with these projects, she can kind of picks and chooses, and we kind of work together to decide which projects to implement and which work well with her budget. So there's a operating budget, and of course with COVID and other things like that, you know, it's subject to budget cuts and stuff. But regarding a specific budget for energy efficiency, I do have we don't have like a large budget. I do have like a tiny budget that I've been using for myself, for instance, for employee engagement. or just straggler projects that I might not be able to quantify, or it might take too long to quantify. So let's say we're looking at hot water piping installation, and I could for sure take some time to look at the length of all the pipes and find out how much it would cost for all the pipes and how much heat it would save for that. But it would almost be easier just to fork over the money. So I do have that tiny bit of money that I have for myself, which I can use for projects like this. So yeah, I don't have a massive budget. I think for your municipality, if you are from a municipality, having a budget set aside for energy efficiency and allowing your MEM to have that freedom and have confidence that they can bring forward some good energy efficiency investments, that would be great.
Awesome, thanks, Adeib. We've got some great questions coming in here. Another question, how much time would you allocate on your peripheral projects?
It really depends. I kind of do it in between. Sometimes, for instance, if I sent out a request for a quote or something, or maybe my building staff are kind of busy and we can't do an audit or we can't implement a specific project, I would work on my peripheral projects. So we don't have like a set, extremely structured time thing going on. So I think in your case, like if you're hiring on an MEM, it really depends on what kind of flexibility your MEM can afford, and depending on how much of a, what roles you currently have within your municipality. So if there's no sustainability stuff going on, or you just want your MEM to specifically focus on energy, there's just that too. So yeah. Okay.
Great. We got another question here. I just published it, so you can take a look at this, Adeib. It says the City Hall office's benchmark EUI is 1.17, different from the MEM benchmark 1.51. Why is it different?
I think it really depends where you're getting your benchmark from. So at first I started with, I don't know if you're familiar with Energy Star, but to be consistent among everyone else, I was talking to Clear Results, and they suggested that we use NRCan. And based off of what I was suggested, that's the benchmark that I use. So if you're another MEM, or if you are Clear Results, feel free to reach out and I can correct these benchmarks, or maybe if it's something that both of us have to correct, I don't know. But yeah, it really depends on what you are referencing, and that's why it's different.
Awesome. I don't see any new questions coming in, so if you do have an urgent question that you would like to ask Adeib, please type it in now. Maybe I could just ask a quick question, Adeib. You were mentioning some of the risks and limitations that you've experienced so far. If you had to pick one that was probably the biggest risk or barrier to some of the work that you've been doing, what would it be and why?
I would say, I guess it would be two risks. One would be staff, having additional staff or the freedom to do things with staff who can support you in implementation, which falls under the umbrella of budgetary limitations. So essentially, yeah, being able to having that freedom to implement things. So whether having more staff members, so you're not adding onto the existing work, and also just straight up being able to implement certain projects, because some projects might get shut down if they don't have the best financials. So I would say budget is the overarching major risk here.
Great, thanks. Okay, it looks like there's not any other new questions, so I might turn it over to Calvin just to close things out.
Sure, thanks, Tori. Yeah, so just before we wrap up, I just wanted to touch on some of the other programs that the Action Center delivers in addition to the MEM program. So for renewable energy, we offer the Alberta Municipal Solar Program and the Solar for Schools program. both microgeneration scale solar PV rebate programs. Rounding out the energy efficiency programs is the Recreation Energy Conservation Program, where municipalities can receive funding to identify energy efficiency projects in their rec centers, and then receive funding to actually implement those projects as well. And also the Electric Vehicles for Municipalities program, and that provides funding for municipalities to purchase a variety of different types of electric vehicles, charging stations, and even get feasibility studies to help build that business case of switching over their fleet to EVs. We have advisory services through a partnership with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities for the Partners for Climate Protection Program, or PCP program. And very new to our group is the Clean Energy Improvement Program that is really a financing solution for residential and commercial property owners to install different energy efficiency and renewable energy retrofits within a municipality that is participating in that program. And yeah, it really just, as we come to a close, I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining, and a real big thank you to our guest, Adeib. You really provided some really great insights as to your journey as an energy manager, and I think I can say with pretty decent confidence that it's been pretty positive for the city of Brooks so far. So yeah, really great job there, and we are really excited to see what else you can accomplish there. So yeah, I hope everyone on the call learned something new about energy management and how an energy manager can make a significant difference within a municipality. So to stay connected, I would encourage everyone to check out our social media channels as well. Stay up to date with all the work that we're doing, but all the work that municipalities out there are leading across the province. And with that, I hope everyone has a great afternoon. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.